Now settle in, you little rascals. Snuggle down under those duvets. Your old grandpa has some tales for you tonight, not of fairies or goblins, but of a creature far more bewildering, far more unpredictable. I speak, of course, of Florida Man. He isn't a single person, you see. Oh no, that would be far too simple. Florida Man is a spirit, a collective consciousness, a sort of walking, talking headline that emerges from the humid, swampy ether of the Sunshine State. He is the answer to the question nobody thought to ask, the punchline to a joke the universe tells itself when it's had one too many margaritas. He is a force of nature, like a hurricane with a mullet and a questionable life plan. Think of him as a modern-day folk hero, a trickster god from a forgotten pantheon of suburban absurdity. Where ancient heroes wrestled lions or stole fire from the heavens, Florida Man wrestles alligators in convenience store car parks and attempts to pay for his drive-through order with a live reptile. He is the reason that news reporters in Florida likely start their day with a very strong coffee and a deep, soul-cleansing sigh. They know that before the sun sets they will be reporting on something that defies all logic, something that will make the rest of the world stop, read the headline twice and simply mutter, of course, it was Florida. Our first story takes place on the placid, shimmering waters of a Florida golf course pond. You know the sort, perfectly manicured greens, suspiciously blue water, and the occasional prehistoric predator sunning itself on the bank. One fine afternoon, a gentleman, and I use that term with the loosest possible interpretation, decided that the resident alligator was not showing him the proper respect. This was, in his slightly sun-addled mind, an unforgivable slight. He felt the need to assert his dominance, to show this creature of the Triassic period who was truly at the top of the food chain. So he began to taunt the beast, a decision that ranked somewhere between juggling chainsaws and using a hornet's nest as a piñata. He didn't just shout at it, mind you. That would have been too straightforward, too sensible. No, our Florida Man waded into the pond, splashing and making a general nuisance of himself. The alligator, which had been peacefully contemplating the great mysteries of life, or perhaps just digesting a duck, was not amused. Finally, the alligator had had enough. With a surge of primordial power, it lunged forward and, with the swiftness of a striking serpent, bit the man's arm. There was a splash, a shout, and a sudden dawning realization that perhaps, just perhaps, this had been a terrible idea. The emergency services arrived to find a scene of pure, unadulterated Floridian chaos. One man nursing a mangled limb, and one very smug-looking reptile. It was a classic man versus nature struggle, except in this version, nature was just trying to nap. Now, for our next chronicle, we venture into the solemn, quiet grounds of a cemetery after dark, a place for reflection, for remembrance, for honouring those who have passed. Or, if you happen to be our next Florida Man, a place for a bit of light, recreational grave robbing. This particular fellow was apprehended by the police while casually riding his bicycle through town. Nothing too unusual about that, you might think, except for the 3 human skulls he was carrying in a backpack, and the assorted other bones, femurs, tibias, the whole bony gang that he had with him. When the officers, no doubt blinking in disbelief, asked him where he had acquired his ghoulish cargo, he was surprisingly forthcoming. He explained that he had been visiting a local cemetery, a place of supposed eternal rest, and had simply helped himself to the remains from an above-ground mausoleum. His reasoning was as chilling as it was bizarre. He told the police that he used the bones for witchcraft, for some sort of ritualistic practice. One can only imagine the sort of spell that requires a bag full of miscellaneous human parts. Perhaps he was trying to summon a spirit, or maybe he was just trying to build a very macabre wind chime. Let us now turn our attention from the ghoulish to the gluttonous. This tale is a testament to the fact that when Florida Man gets a craving, he doesn't let little things like laws, logic, or the structural integrity of a building stand in his way. Our protagonist on this occasion was a man with a singular, all-consuming desire. He wanted some ramen noodles, instead of walking into the local corner shop and, paying for the noodles like a normal person. This culinary connoisseur hatched a far grander plan. He acquired a forklift. Yes, a great hulking piece of industrial machinery designed for lifting heavy pallets in a warehouse. He then drove this mechanical beast to a nearby dollar store in the dead of night. Did he try to delicately pick the lock, or perhaps smash a window? Of course not. That would lack a certain flair. He simply rammed the forklift directly through the wall of the store, creating a gaping, noodle-sized hole in the side of the building. Once inside, amidst the rubble and the dust, he navigated his mighty machine through the aisles, a steel behemoth in a kingdom of cheap trinkets and processed foods. He located his prize, the coveted packets of instant ramen, and presumably used the giant forks to scoop them up before making his grand escape. This next story is one of my favorites, for it speaks to the dreamer in all of us. It's about a man who looked at his ordinary run-of-the-mill patio furniture and didn't just see a place to sit and drink iced tea. He saw a vessel, a chariot, a ticket to the heavens. This man, a truck driver by trade, decided one day that he wanted to fly. But he wasn't going to bother with flying lessons or commercial aeroplanes. His plan was far more elegant, far more Florida. He went to an army surplus store and purchased 45 weather balloons. With his neighbours watching in a state of slack-jawed astonishment, our intrepid aviator strapped himself into his makeshift aircraft, cut the tether, and majestically ascended into the sky. He didn't just go up a little bit, he went up a lot. He soared to an altitude of over 16,000 feet. Commercial airline pilots, preparing for their final approach, began radioing the control tower with confused and slightly panicked reports of a man in a lawn chair floating past their cockpit windows. You can imagine the air traffic controller's face trying to process that particular piece of information. And so, my darlings, our journey through the weird and wonderful world of Florida Man comes to a close for tonight. The moon is high and your eyelids are getting heavy. You've heard tales of ill-advised alligator wrestling, of ghoulish grave robbing, of forklift-driven noodle quests, of lawn chairs taking flight, and of phantom squirrel armies. So as you drift off to sleep, let these stories be a strange sort of guide. When you're faced with a choice in life, ask yourself one simple question. What would Florida Man do? And then, whatever the answer is, do the exact opposite. It's a surprisingly reliable moral compass. Now, close your eyes. Dream of sensible things, of logical choices and well-thought-out plans, but keep a little space in your heart for the sheer, unadulterated chaos of Florida Man. Sleep well, you little terrors, and don't you dare try to attach balloons to my recliner. Good night.